العقبات، وأزكى السلام وأتم التسليم على المبعوث رحمة للعالمين صلى الله تعالى عليه وعلى سائر إخوانه من الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى آل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين وصحابته أجمعين وعن التابعين وتابعيهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، وأشهد أن محمدًا عبده ورسوله وصفيه من خلقه وخليله، بلغ الرسالة وأدى الأمانة ونصح الأمة، فجزاه الله خير ما جاز به نبيًا عن أمته. أما بعد. Today is a day of celebration and thanksgiving. Celebration of Eid al-Fitr, the breaking of the fast of Ramadan, and thanksgiving to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He enabled us to go through this fantastic spiritual experience. Like all other acts of worship in Islam, fasting is not mere fasting from food or drink. In fact, the Quran is against ritualism. When the ritual becomes an end in itself. In the Quran we read, ليس البر أن تولوا وجوهكم قبل المشرق والمغرب ولكن البر من آمن بالله واليوم الآخر والملائكة والكتاب والنبيين إلى آخر الآية. Just a simple free translation. The Quran says it is not righteousness that you turn your face toward the east or west, i.e. the ritual, the formal, that might be required, but that's not the purpose. But then it goes on to define what real righteousness means, including such aspects of belief, like belief in Allah, His angels, His prophets, by charity and giving to those who are in need in various categories, by fulfilling one's promise, by persevering in patience in cases of adversity. This is the real righteousness as defined by the Quran. Likewise, fasting is not only fasting from food or drink, but as our beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam taught us, it is to abstain from all evil. And he said that anyone who does not abstain from falsehood in words or deeds, Allah has no need for him or her to abstain from their food or drink. But when we look into the Quran, the primary source of Islam, number one, we find that even the verses in the Quran beginning in the second chapter, from verse 183, that made fasting mandatory on able Muslims. It gives the reason why you fast, not for the sake of thirst or hunger. But what does it say? لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ. You can translate it in more than one way, I admit. But we can also say لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ means so that you may achieve or attain a state of righteousness. We're not talking about absolute righteousness, but righteousness as much as any human being can strive to achieve. Therefore, the chosen theme of this short khutbah, inshallah, reasonably short, is to dwell a little bit on what that righteousness really means. Who really is a righteous Muslim in the comprehensive way that the Quran and the teaching of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam guide us. And inshallah, I'll be dealing with 7 points and come to conclusion, 7 areas. First, a righteous Muslim, ideally, is the one who strives to strengthen, inculcate, and sustain his or her relationship with the Creator, with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, through belief and trust in Allah, the love of Allah, obedience and submission to the will and wisdom of Allah, and what comes as a result of that submission and love of Allah, of all moral virtues such as truthfulness, honesty, and all other similar virtues generated and inculcated through relationship with the Creator. Secondly, a righteous Muslim is one who does not simply believe and leave it at that level, but one who is able, with the help of Allah, to translate that relationship with the Creator into relationship with the creation of Allah. That includes human beings, it includes relationship and kindness to animals, it includes relationship with vegetation and the environment at large. And this is all found in early sources of Islam. But we choose, however, the most important of this creation of Allah, the crown of Allah's creation, relationship with the human being. I'm not talking only about Muslim, relationship with human beings. But obviously we have to start somewhere. So now we can think of some various patterns of relationship from a narrower circle to a broader circle. To start with, relationship and its significance has to begin with one's relationship with his family. Family is the cornerstone of society. You get a healthy family, you get a healthy society. You get a sick family, you get a sick society. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala provide us various forms of guidance on this, both in the Quran and through His Messenger, Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. But to put it briefly and succinctly, relationship with parents based on love, respect, and obedience, legitimate obedience, and care when they get old and weak. Relationship with one's spouse, which is described in the Quran, and that is the basic relationship. Relationship of peace, tranquility, love, and mercy, compassion. A relationship that is shaped by mutual caring and by accepting the complementarity of roles of male and female, not because one role is inferior or superior, but they are equal, complementary, collaborative roles of husband and wife. A relationship that's based on mutual respect and kindness, abstaining from all forms of psychological or physical abuse based on distorted and erroneous understanding of certain texts, leaving aside the total picture that the Quran gives about how one should treat his or her spouse, something that we find in the words and example of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. A relationship also with children that is based on mercy, care, and good and righteous upbringing. Thirdly, it involves also relationship with other relatives, not just the so-called nucleus or nuclear family. Caring for siblings, aunties, uncles, and other far relatives. The third aspect of defining a Muslim who's righteous, a righteous Muslim. A righteous Muslim is one who considers himself a member of the global, not nation, but ummah, which means community of believers that embraces each and every one of the approximately 1.6 billion human beings on earth who claim to be Muslim, irrespective as to whether they live in a majority situation, minority situation, or remote island. A Muslim should feel as part of their body. And as the Prophet ﷺ taught us, one should feel that brotherhood of faith to start with. And if we don't develop a sense of brotherhood with people who share our faith, we cannot give it to others. So it's not exclusion of others, it is actually circles that teaches us how to deal with people in wider circle of existence. The brotherhood of faith, in spite of differences of juridical schools or interpretation, brotherhood that is based on universal acceptance of the thawabit, the basics of Islam that no two Muslims should dispute about. Namely, the belief in Allah and His prophets and His messenger, respecting all, and also the moral code that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has prescribed for us. As the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, إِنَّمَا بُعِثْتُ لِأُتَمِّمَ مَكَارِمَ الْأَخْلَاقِ. He sums up his mission. I was only sent to perfect good manners and good behavior.